Antarctica.
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 In the ice, like a huge entrance to a cave, but slanted going down. And he said, I think it was at least, Linda, 200 feet in diameter, a big hole in the ice.
For 70 years, the United States maintained a massive military operation in Antarctica, trusting that the noble guise of science would conceal its true purpose. But recently, as a film crew deployed a drone to record a collapsing ice shelf, they captured more than just falling ice. They recorded a fleeting glimpse of a dark, metallic structure emerging from deep within. What was breached that day was not just a sheet of ice, but a 70-year-long quarantine. And as the ice continues to melt, it threatens to expose not just a secret, but the very reason why an entire continent was placed under military guard in the first place. The activation incident. We begin our journey with a shocking event that happened very recently. An event that was quietly kept out of the major news headlines around the world. At the end of the year, 2023, a massive area in the eastern part of Antarctica, a piece of land far bigger than the entire state of California, was suddenly and completely closed off from the rest of the world. All scientific flights were immediately rerouted. All private expeditions were canceled. And satellite communication channels that passed over this huge zone began to experience strange and unexplained interference, making them unreliable. The official reason given to the public for this sudden lockdown came from the United States Joint Task Force, the group responsible for military logistics on the continent. They stated that a very unusual and powerful storm from space, which is called a geomagnetic storm, was passing over the region, and that this storm was making it too dangerous for any travel or communication. But the true story seems to have started a few weeks before any official announcement, and it did not involve a storm from space at all. The real story began with a small, independent group of filmmakers who were in Antarctica for a very clear purpose. Their goal was simple. They wanted to make a documentary film to show the world how climate change was causing the ancient ice to melt at a dangerous speed. And they were not looking for lost cities or secrets from the past. To get their pictures, they were using a very advanced flying camera, known as a drone, to film the enormous ice cliffs that line the coast. But as this drone was flying and recording video, something happened that would trigger one of the most secret and urgent military operations in modern history. In the final few seconds before the film crew lost all contact with their expensive drone forever, its camera captured a huge wall of ice collapsing into the ocean below. The most important question is not just about what the drone saw, but it is about why the reaction from the United States military was so fast, so large, and so complete. A very short video clip, only 3 seconds long and very blurry, was supposedly leaked from that drone's final recording. The video shows the massive wall of ice breaking apart and falling, but for just a moment, instead of showing only ice and rock. The image seems to reveal something else, something with a structured shape, something dark and metallic that was hidden deep inside the ice. This forces us to ask a serious question. Was this the real reason for the complete shutdown of an entire region of our planet? And was this object a real structure? Or was it just a trick of the light and shadows? The witness in the shutdown zone. To truly understand the incredible size and speed of this military shutdown, we must listen to the story of the person who was at the very center of it all. We will call her Anna, and she was the leader of the small team of filmmakers who lost their drone that day. She describes the confusing and frightening moments after the connection to their drone was suddenly cut off, leaving their computer screen black and silent. Only a few hours after they lost their machine, they heard the loud sound of helicopters approaching their remote camp. 2 large, dark helicopters, which Anna says were HH-60 Pave Hawks, a type used by the military for special operations, landed near their tents. The strange thing was that these helicopters had no official numbers or country flags painted on them. they were completely unmarked. The soldiers who came out of the helicopters were not wearing the standard uniforms of any army. They were dressed in special, all-white winter gear with their faces covered. And they carried weapons. Anna explains that the soldiers were not violent or aggressive, but they were very serious and clear in their mission. They told the film crew that a serious security situation was happening and that they had to collect all of their equipment immediately for reasons of national security. The soldiers then went through the camp and took everything that could store information. They took all of the cameras, the laptop computers, the memory cards, and even the team's paper notebooks, where they had written down their daily notes. Anna says that the most unsettling part of the entire experience was not the object they might have seen, but the incredible efficiency and speed of the operation to silence them. It felt as if this special military team was not reacting to a surprise, but was instead carrying out a plan that had been prepared a long time ago. A plan that was just waiting for a reason to be activated. Within 24 hours, Anna and her entire team were politely but firmly escorted off the continent of Antarctica. Before they left, they were required to sign official documents, which were agreements that legally forced them to never speak about what had happened to them. But Anna reveals one last, critical detail. In the short time before the soldiers arrived, one of her team members managed to quickly copy a single, very small file onto a personal music player. This file was not the video footage, but it was the drone's final telemetry data, which is the information that the drone's electronic sensors send back to the controllers. This data showed that at the exact moment the drone lost contact, its sensors detected a massive spike in temperature and a powerful burst of electromagnetic radiation coming from the spot where the ice had collapsed. A kind of energy that simply does not exist in natural geological events. This meant that whatever was hidden in the ice was not just old and silent. It was active. Evidence from space. Anna's incredible story about being silenced by a secret military team would be easy to dismiss as a simple mistake or a fantasy if it existed all by itself. But her account is confirmed by evidence from a completely different and highly technical source. A source that was watching from high above the Earth. This confirmation comes from a man who used to work as a satellite imagery analyst, a person whose job was to carefully study the detailed pictures of our planet that are taken by powerful cameras on satellites orbiting in space. He explains that, for years, the specific area where Anna's film crew was working has been known inside certain secret government circles as the Quiet Zone. On public maps that anyone can see on the internet, like Google Earth, this part of Antarctica looks completely normal. Just another empty stretch of ice and snow. But on the secret data feeds that are used only by the military, this quiet zone was always a strange blind spot. The information and pictures from this specific patch of land were systematically filtered out or completely blocked before other analysts could see them, as if a digital black box had been placed over it. This shows that a secret policy to hide this area from view was already in place, long before the drone incident ever happened. The most important fact is that the drone from the film crew had accidentally flown directly into this pre-existing quiet zone. After the drone disappeared and Anna's team was removed, this analyst watched as the small quiet zone suddenly expanded on his secret maps. It grew to become more than 10 times its original size, creating the enormous shutdown area that exists today. This proves that the shutdown was not a new action, but was instead a massive escalation of a secret that the military had been keeping for a very long time. The analyst then reveals the final, most disturbing piece of the puzzle. He looked back into the historical satellite records to find out when this quiet zone was first created. It was not established in recent years. The digital wall around this small piece of Antarctica was first put in place in the 1950s. This date is not random, because it perfectly matches the exact time when the United States military began its largest and most continuous operation on the frozen continent. That operation has a name that is known to history: Operation Deep Freeze, the origin of the secret. Operation Deep Freeze. We must now look back into the pages of history to understand the true origin of this massive secret. The clue that the satellite analyst gave us, pointing to the 1950s, leads us directly to a famous and very large American military mission in Antarctica called Operation Deep Freeze, the official story. The one that is written in history books and taught in schools, tells us that Operation Deep Freeze began in the year 1955. Its stated purpose was to build scientific research stations and to provide all the necessary logistical support for the scientists who would work there. Logistical support is a military term that simply means providing all the transportation, the food, the fuel, and the equipment that people need to live and work in a remote place. This mission was part of a very important global scientific project called the International Geophysical Year, where many countries agreed to study the Earth and its atmosphere together in peace. On the surface, this explanation seems perfectly reasonable and makes complete sense as a peaceful mission for science. But the facts, when you look at them closely, begin to tell a very different and much more confusing story. The central question that does not fit the official explanation is this: why would a mission that was only meant to support peaceful science need such an enormous military force to carry it out? The scale of Operation Deep Freeze was truly immense, far larger than what would be needed to simply build a few research labs. The United States sent entire naval fleets to the frozen continent, including powerful military icebreaker ships and even massive aircraft carriers, which are giant floating airports for fighter jets. They sent thousands and thousands of soldiers and Navy sailors who are trained for combat and war, not for scientific construction. They also used their biggest and most powerful military cargo airplanes, like the famous C-130 Hercules, which were specially changed with large skis so they could land directly on the ice. This massive military presence was not a one-time event. It has been continued without stopping for nearly 70 years, costing an incredible amount of money and resources. When you compare Operation Deep Freeze to the Antarctic programs of other countries, the difference is shocking. Other nations also have scientists working in Antarctica, but they support their research with civilian ships and a small number of support staff. They do not have thousands of soldiers and entire military fleets stationed there year after year. The American operation was, and still is, completely unique in its enormous military size. Furthermore, official government documents that were once secret but have now been made available to the public, which are called declassified documents, show that the military's initial interest in Antarctica was about more than just science. These old documents speak of a need to investigate what they called anomalous phenomena, a term for strange and unexplained events. And they also talked about the strategic security of the continent, which means its importance in a potential global war. So the question we are forced to ask is a very serious one. Was the real purpose of Operation Deep Freeze to build scientific stations? Or was the science just a convenient cover story for a much more serious, secret mission? Was this operation not about building something new, but about guarding something that was already there? If that is true, what could possibly be so important on a continent of ice that it would need to be guarded by the full power of the United States military for nearly 70 years? The forbidden hypothesis. A continental quarantine. This is the point where we must introduce a powerful and unsettling idea. A hypothesis that seems to be the only one that can explain all of the strange facts we have uncovered. A hypothesis is a proposed explanation for something, an idea that is not yet proven but fits all the available evidence. Considering the massive, long-term military presence of Operation Deep Freeze, and the decades-long policy of secrecy surrounding the quiet zone, the evidence suggests that its true mission was never about scientific discovery. Instead, its real purpose may have been a mission of quarantine, A quarantine is an act of total isolation, like building a very strong wall around something that is considered extremely dangerous, in order to make absolutely sure that it can never get out and harm the rest of the world. This hypothesis proposes that the United States military was not in Antarctica to study the continent, but to act as prison guards for the entire continent itself. This idea of a continental quarantine provides a logical reason for everything we have seen so far. It explains why Operation Deep Freeze needed to be a military operation of such an enormous size. A mission to guard a dangerous secret requires soldiers, military ships, and strict control, which is very different from a mission to simply help scientists. It explains why the quiet zone was created on secret maps. This zone would be the precise location of the thing being guarded, the very center of the prison, a place that must be kept hidden from all outside eyes, especially the eyes of satellites in space. It also perfectly explains why the reaction to the drone incident was so incredibly fast and perfectly organized. The soldiers who removed Anna's team were not just a random patrol. They were a rapid response team, a special unit whose only job was to deal with a breach in the quarantine. A moment when someone from the outside world accidentally saw what was inside the prison. Their actions were the result of a plan that had been in place for 70 years, waiting for this exact kind of emergency. But this leads us to the most important question of all. What could be so dangerous or so valuable that it would need to be hidden and guarded with such extreme measures? We do not know for sure, but the possibilities are world-changing. It could be a form of ancient technology, perhaps the remains of a lost civilization that existed long before our own, with machines and power sources that would completely change our society. It could be something biological, perhaps a form of life that is not based on the same carbon chemistry as all life on Earth, something truly alien. Or it could be the most terrifying possibility of all, a paleovirus, which is an ancient and unknown virus that has been perfectly preserved, frozen deep inside the ice for millions of years. If such a virus were to escape, our modern human bodies would have no immunity, no defense against it, and it could cause a global pandemic, a plague far worse than anything we have ever known. The exact nature of the secret does not matter as much as the response to it, whether it was technology, biology, or a virus. Any of these things would be considered too dangerous to reveal, and the decision would have been made to lock it away forever, keeping humanity safe by keeping it ignorant. This quarantine relied on one perfect prison wall, a natural barrier thousands of feet thick and stronger than any man-made material. That prison wall was the Antarctic ice sheet itself. But what happens to a prison when its very walls begin to melt away? The prison wall is melting. This entire hypothesis of a continental quarantine, the idea of a 70-year-long military guard duty, depends on one critical factor: the strength and permanence of the prison itself. The prison was not made of steel or concrete. It was made of the ancient Antarctic ice sheet, a wall of frozen water miles thick that was believed to be eternal and unbreakable. But now, that very prison wall is failing. This chapter is not based on secret reports or witness stories. It is based entirely on publicly available, proven science. Scientists from all over the world are in complete agreement that the ice in Antarctica is now melting at a speed that is faster than ever before in human history. Every single year, the continent is losing hundreds of billions of tons of ice, enough fresh water to fill millions and millions of Olympic-sized swimming pools. And this water is flowing into our oceans. For a long time, scientists believed that the ice in the eastern part of Antarctica, the very region where our quiet zone is located, was very stable and not in danger. But recent studies have shown that this is no longer true, as even the massive glaciers in the east have now started to lose ice at an alarming rate. The main reason for this rapid melting is not just that the air is getting warmer, The real danger is coming from the ocean itself. The waters of the Southern Ocean that surround Antarctica are getting warmer. And this warm water is not just touching the edges of the continent, it is flowing in deep currents underneath the giant floating ice shelves, which are the parts of the ice sheet that extend out over the ocean. This warm water is melting the ice from the bottom up, making the foundations of the glaciers weak and unstable. This process is like slowly melting the legs of a giant table. You may not see the danger at first, but eventually the entire structure is going to collapse. So the natural seal that has kept the secrets of Antarctica locked away is now being broken down by our warming planet. For many years, we knew very little about what was actually underneath all of that ice. But thanks to powerful new technology, like a special kind of radar that can see through the ice, scientists have made some of the most incredible discoveries on Earth. They discovered that Antarctica is not a flat, empty piece of land. Hidden underneath the ice, there is an entire world of giant mountains, deep canyons, and flowing water. They found the Gamburtsev Mountains, a mountain range as large as the European Alps, completely buried under 2 miles of solid ice. They also found hundreds of subglacial lakes, which are huge bodies of liquid fresh water that have been trapped under the ice for millions of years, completely cut off from the outside world. Lake Vostok is the largest of these, a lake as big as one of the Great Lakes in North America, hidden in total darkness. These discoveries prove that a vast and complex world exists beneath the ice, a world we are only just beginning to understand. If entire mountain ranges can be hidden, what else could be down there? But the most alarming scientific discovery is a very recent one. New studies have shown that there is a channel, like an underwater river, of that same warm ocean water flowing directly towards the foundations of the massive ice shelf located inside the quiet zone. This means the prison wall is not just melting slowly, it is being actively attacked at its weakest point. The collapse of the ice wall that the drone recorded was not a random event. It was the first visible symptom of this much larger process. A process that suggests the final breach of the 70-year-old quarantine is no longer a question of if, but a terrifying question of when. The end of the 70-year watch, with the scientific proof that the Antarctic ice is melting. The drone incident that started our story now takes on a completely new and much more frightening meaning. We can now understand that the drone did not cause the crisis. Instead, it acted as the final alarm bell, a signal that the long-feared moment had finally arrived. The brief video of the dark, metallic object was the first piece of undeniable, physical proof that the prison wall was truly breaking. The object was not just a strange thing hidden in the ice. It was a piece of the secret that was now being exposed to the outside world because its icy cage was disappearing. The military's 70-year-long watch was based on the simple belief that the ice would hold forever. And the drone's final video was the moment that belief was shattered. The quarantine, the most important secret mission in modern history, was now actively failing. This new understanding allows us to see the current military shutdown for what it truly is. It is not an operation to hide a discovery from a small film crew. That was just the very first small step. The massive shutdown that followed, the expansion of the quiet zone to a size larger than a country, is a full-scale crisis response. This is the desperate final act of the prison guards who have just realized that the walls are crumbling down around them. The thousands of soldiers and the huge military cargo planes that are flying to Antarctica right now are not there to continue a simple observation mission. It is much more likely that they are there to attempt a last-minute, desperate containment effort. Are they trying to use some unknown technology to slow down the melting? Are they attempting to build a new, artificial wall to hold back whatever is emerging? Or are they preparing for an even more extreme option, a plan to somehow sterilize or neutralize the secret before it can fully escape its icy prison? We do not know for sure, But we know that this is an active and urgent operation. The purpose of the secrecy has also changed. For the last 70 years, the secret was kept to prevent other countries from finding out, to maintain control, and to hold a powerful advantage. But now, the reason for the secrecy is likely much more serious. The military is probably not trying to hide the secret to keep it for themselves. They are trying to hide it to prevent a complete and total global panic. They have moved from being guards of a valuable prize to being the protectors of a potentially world-ending catastrophe. But here is the most terrifying part of the entire story. Even with this massive military operation, with all of their advanced technology and power, it seems that their efforts are not working. Independent satellite companies, which are not controlled by any government, have been watching the shutdown zone. Their satellites can take special pictures that show heat, which are called thermal images. These new thermal images show that the strange heat signal, the one that Anna's drone detected a small burst of, is still there, and it is not getting weaker. It is getting stronger and is slowly spreading over a larger area. This means that whatever is happening deep beneath the ice, whatever is generating that heat, is continuing its process, and the most powerful military on Earth seems to be completely unable to stop it. The guards have lost control. The question is no longer what, but when. We have now reached the end of our journey, and we can finally provide an answer to the great question that we started with. The question of why the United States military has maintained such a massive presence in Antarctica for 70 long years. The mountain of evidence all points to one conclusion. The official story of scientific support seems to be a cover for the true mission. Operation Deep Freeze was very likely the longest and most secret quarantine operation in all of human history. The military was not there to build. They were there to guard. They were guarding something found deep beneath the ancient ice, something they decided was too powerful, too dangerous, or too world-changing for the rest of humanity to ever know about. The ice itself was the prison, and for 70 years, they were the prison guards. But that long mission has now ended in failure. It did not fail because of another country or a secret enemy. It failed because the prison walls themselves, the ancient sheets of ice, are now melting away. The very thing that made the quarantine possible, the extreme cold and the permanent ice, is being undone by the warming of our own planet. The drone did not create the crisis. It only acted as the final confirmation that the crisis had already begun. The military shutdown we are seeing right now is therefore the last, desperate act of the guards who have completely lost control of their prison. We do not know for certain what the secret is, whether it is technology, biology, or something else entirely. In the end, what it is matters less than the fact that its containment has failed. The story is no longer about a secret of the past that is being hidden from us. It is now about a reality of the future that is about to be revealed to all of us. And so, the central question has changed. The question for humanity is no longer what is hidden under the ice in Antarctica. The real question, the one that we must all now face, is, when it finally emerges from its melting prison, will we be ready?